a very important topic. It's a very important topic for us because it talks about connected histories, which is something that I feel is very a significant factor, which we don't really deal with in great detail in our MA courses. And I think this would be very, very important for research scholars. Professor Zin has trained in Indian theatre and Indian religion and Indian art. She's somebody who has worked with painting, Ajanta especially, her work on Ajanta, as well as her work on a Kanagahali, which is a recent work, is a very important addition to scholarship on early Indian art. She's also traced a lot of connections between the Deccan and Gandharan art, and I think that kind of connectedness of art as well as cultural contacts is something that has really helped in increasing our understanding about how motives travel. She is at the moment heading a project which is on Kucha. So she's looking at the Buddhist artistic and literary heritage at Kucha. And I think that is something that again is going to help us in understanding how not just painting, but also Buddhist legends and traditions traveled and influence. Transculturality is one aspect that we will be looking at. So we are all looking forward to your talk, Professor Zin. Over to you.
Many, many thanks. First of all, for this invitation that Professor Bava thought about me. It's really, I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity. As I understood, students will be able to see this lecture, and actually I'm addressing this lecture first of all to them, because I really think the knowledge about Central Asia, especially about Kucha, should in India be much more popular. And I think India really needs young researchers dealing with this with such issues. I will I don't really know how, because it's something really funny about Zoom. I don't know if you are aware of that. What I say is everything in German and looks completely different like what you see. So Zoom is working with really funny way, depending on your country. So how can I switch to my presentation?
You can go to share screen.
Yes.
Click on that. Click on share screen.
It says the host is not allowing me to do so in German.
Oh. Okay. Ashu, please allow Professor Zin to share her screen. Or whoever, Ashu, who's looking at this, she needs to make
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
Now I can. Okay. Now I can try. No.
No, still says?
Yeah, it says host. The freestanding of all members, what we see is deactivated, whatever it means. So, yeah, now I can see. Now I can see and can.
Ma'am, please try now.
It should work.
Perfect. We can see it. Yeah.
Great. So as I started before, I really hope that new researchers in India will be inspired by this lecture, and I'm very grateful to Professor Bava just thinking about me and the need in India to talk about Silk Road. As you see below, and as Sima said before, this is this research center, the Saxon Academy of Sciences and Humanities in Leipzig, and it deals with paintings in Kucha. So this is the center of my talk today, and this title about tracing India on the Silk Road is actually in the best way possible, and shows the most results when you deal with Kucha on the Northern Silk Road. So tracing India, as you see, Kucha is sort of very far away from India, and there is Himalaya in between, so the way was really quite far. So the question is, how did it work, and why actually, who were these people in today's autonomous region of Uyghur in People's Republic of China, and why they were actually so much interested in Indian, purely Indian culture. This is how the Silk Road is understood in Europe. I was sort of surprised that it's not necessarily like that in India. That's why I'm showing you that it is not only between India and Central Asia, but it was a system of roads between ancient Rome and going to the east border of China, or even to Nara in Japan. And somehow nearly in the middle of this road system, the Silk Road must take two different ways because of the Taklamakan Desert in the middle. So we have the southern Silk Road, which is probably more known in India, and the northern Silk Road with Kucha. When we talk about Kucha, there are 10 clusters of man-made caves painted. So something you know very well from Ajanta, for example. These names I will show you during the lecture. There's a Kizil in the middle, the biggest group of the caves, but Simsim, Kumtura, Tograk Eken, and so on and so on. You know it from Ajanta. Ajanta from outside is actually much more beautiful because the architecture, this verandas were made out of stone. Here in what you see here is concrete. It's a modern addition. On the upper right side, how the caves looked like without them, and they are just simply holes in the cliff. It wasn't like that before. The verandas were out of wood, and wood was really expensive in the area, so it was stolen long ago. Now, tracing India, preparing this lecture, I had actually a huge problem how to make a selection of what to talk about. What I decided to do is just from my own or my students' research. If you are interested in that, all these papers on academia, so you can read further. But actually, thinking about tracing India in Kucha, I must think about something quite funny, and that I will also share with you. There is a sort of encyclopedia, not sort, it is an encyclopedia. Poland, when I come from, 18th century, and there is a fantastic book about white world, really interesting information, of course, of the niveau of 18th century, but still that must have been Wikipedia of their time. Really many extremely interesting information. But about the horse, the author writes only what horse is like, everyone can see. And it is something like that with tracing India in Kucha, because actually, or not only in Kucha, on the Silk Road, actually everyone can see. Just go to the National Museum, where actually not so popular. It's just one on the second or third floor in the National Museum. You have this fantastic collection from the Southern Silk Road. So what is here tracing India? It is exactly the same. The medium can be different, but just look at this huge ushnisha, mustache, double rim of the halo, or even the thumb of the Buddha's hand. It is exactly like we know it from Gandhara. So how the horse look like, everyone can see. You can have hundreds of examples that it is actually repetition of Indian art. I'm actually tired and bored with such examples, because that's really a cheap way to entertain you. Everyone can see how similar all that is. And of course, we are on the Silk Road, the climate is completely different. So that we see here Bodhisattva Maitreya sort of naked in the Indian way, it is already repetition of Indian art. It does not have to be Gandhara. We see, especially in second Indo-Iranian style, really many similarities, it's too small word, between Ajanta and Kucha. That's the story in which the monkey king will be killed by that person, by that man. There are so many possibilities to kill a monkey, like show it sleeping on the side of water reservoir and the man holding a stone in two hands. It still goes even farther back. In Kanaganahari, that's the same story, which we know not only from Jatakas, but also from Panchatantra, about wise monkey king who advised their monkey people to drink water with straws to avoid being killed by the Rakshasa in the water. Again, so many possibilities, not only to show the tank from completely round and from above and only huge face of the Rakshasa. So the context between subcontinent and Kucha, however it worked, we don't know, but you can really very, very easily touch them. What horse is like? That's the point, difficulty by this lecture. It is, of course, not only the point with paintings. In Kucha, hundreds of manuscripts in Sanskrit and in other languages in Brahmi scripts have been discovered. We have Sanskrit manuscript on palm leaves, which is imported from India. No palms in the area. We have Sanskrit manuscript produced there on beech bark, and we also have Sanskrit and bilinguals in Tocharian B, the language which was spoken in the area. More than 100 years, all those manuscripts and paintings have been worked on in Germany. And as you see, titles are in German, so when you want to work with it, it's really practical to know the language. So we have Sanskrit manuscripts from Turfan finds, Dictionary of Buddhist Texts from there, Sanskrit text from, that's really great series, Sanskrit Texte aus den Turfan-Funden, with a lot of fantastic editions of Sanskrit texts in together with their Tibetan and their Pali comparison. You hear correct, compared with Pali, together with translation of Chinese equivalents. This is really important that we can compare this text in Sanskrit with Pali. I'm stressing that for me something absolutely obvious, but I met so many times that people connect this northern Buddhism with Mahayana, which is true only on several points, but most of that, and especially in Kucha, this is sort of traditional old Buddhism, and many parts, like in this, for example, Mahaparinirvana Sutra, preserved on the Northern Silk Road in Sanskrit, entire parts are nearly identical with Pali Theravada version. It's really important to remember about it. So those additions on the basis of Turfan manuscripts. That all should not surprise us. Xuanzang in 7th century still writes that literature in the area is actually Indian, with only some differences. He writes about many monasteries and thousands of monks, and he stressed also that they belong to the little vehicle, so Hinayana, not Mahayana, but Hinayana, and Sarvastivada school, and also that they use the same Sanskrit original, so that their let's say church language used by monks is Sanskrit. There are not only texts like Mahaparinirvana Sutra or Vinaya text, but we have very many others so important texts, like the famous yoga manual founder. That's really manual for meditating Buddhist monks, the only one which we have. It is not tradition from there. Professor Schlingdorf, who edited that in 60s, really stressed the tradition and probably also the manuscripts that were coming from Kashmir. So actually we don't know if they were written in Kucha or taken to already like manuscripts to Central Asia. Now, maybe still that. It was just put on a couple of minutes ago. We are talking here about Buddhism, and which was definitely the main or maybe even the only religion of the area. But on these manuscripts, like we have fragments on the Silk Road from Ramayana, and also the oldest list of the Parvan from Mahabharata. So there is really a lot of information we have here. So what I said, what horse is like, actually other way around, because of climate situation, because there on the with Taklamakan desert, there's a climate situation like we have in Egypt, where even fragile materials can survive there. The Indian culture could survive there, and because of too wet climate in India, manuscripts like that, like for example Parvan list of Mahabharata, survived there and not in India itself. I mentioned before about the language which is called today Tocharian B. As you see, it is written in Brahmi alphabet, and so for the first glance, you cannot even recognize it. This is Indo-European language, belonging to Indo-European family. So for speakers of this language, it was, of course, much easier to use Sanskrit than Chinese. If you would like to know more about this manuscripts, not only manuscripts, as you see, we have on different objects, secular writings, or also on the walls, like captions to our paintings. All that is possible to find when you just Google Tocharian manuscript, University of Vienna. You will be connected with fantastic site with pictures of manuscript editions and translations. How that happened, that in this German language countries in Central Europe, we have so much research about that. At the beginning of 20th century, there were 4 Turfan expeditions. We call them Turfan. You see, Turfan is far to the east. That was the aim, so the name was there. Kucha is farther to the west. But with this name, Sanskrit manuscript finds also things found in Kucha or Karashar or wherever are unknown. So that's just terminus technicus for everything from the northern Silk Road. There were not only manuscripts which were taken to Berlin, to Germany. We have a lot of artifacts like beautiful sculptures, and also you see this line on the painting on the right side. They found a way to cut and to remove paintings from the walls. Some of them, like this from Kizil 205, were lost during the Second World War, which is really a shame and really pity. Who were people who paid for such paintings? Like Kizil 205 from the same cave, we have depictions and also inscriptions who they are. Mahadevi, so the queen, Maharaja, Kuchi Maharaja, Kuchi Mahadevi, Indian names, how they Swayambhava, that how they call themselves. So they were really proud. That was their cultural identity. But they look, of course, not Indian. Even the monk is wearing shoes. So the climate is different, and we really can see huge difference between how the donors are depicted and how narrative depictions based of Indian art are shown. Those donors are proud enough to show themselves in the on the first sermon of the Buddha. But in general, they depicted themselves on the front walls, on the corridors, in the middle of the caves. You see it correctly, quite often red hair or blonde hair, blue eyes are visible. So they were really Indo-Europeans, not only their language. This is how they show themselves, and also sometimes there are deities carrying them. About that, I can say, if we are right and explain on all this clad in Central Asian art people like donors, maybe there are deities, local deities. They were really proud, and this elite who was able to afford these fantastic caves really had, quite good meaning about themselves. To their identity definitely belonged their language. People from Vienna project told me that there are really only few mistakes in their Tocharian B manuscripts. So they were really taking care of their language. Their identity must have been also the sort of early Buddhism, without pantheon of Mahayana or Vajrayana deities, which were common in this time. And of course, also this what we have from them, this painted caves. And you see there is entire row of same looking caves, and easy to imagine that every family just wanted to have such a cave. The caves are known to their central pillar caves, which is not really good. You don't see pillar when you are there, but there is a possibility to circumambulate behind the main image. So the sculpture of the Buddha, which was placed in the niche in the main road. These central pillar caves were characteristic for the second Indo-Iranian style. I will tell you something about dating about it, our dating from Leipzig afterwards. So let's say middle of the 6th century. And the question is, where from such architecture appeared? I have my theory, and I'm waiting that maybe it will be worked further by Indian scholars. We see differences in painting and in architecture, and also of faces, for example, and in first and second style. Not only in faces, but also in colors used there. Like we don't have lapis lazuli in first Indo-Iranian style. So only after the middle of the 6th century, probably the routes to Afghanistan were there, not before. So we have different points which really try to show us this difference. So in first Indo-Iranian style, we have caves without this circumambulation of the Buddha in the main niche. Where does it come from? Let us jump to Ajanta 17. When you go there, you will see only this, because it's impossible to go further. But actually, there are corridors on both sides of the Buddha. And those corridors, it's really easy to see, were added later. Maybe I still go back to this, I don't know if you can see my cursor. So that was added later, and here is a clear cut. That must have been just walls here behind. That's how I see it. Rajat Singh, who works on that, sent me the picture, so it is absolutely clear that the Bodhisattva had been cut through his arms and leg, and we see also that it was people were going there. It's really darker places. So added later, when we concern Ajanta 17, maybe middle of the 5th century, so let's say around 500, that could have been added. Maybe this is the beginning of this, what we can observe also in Kucha. The point is, this is exactly the same school, Mula Sarvastivada school in Ajanta, second phase, and also in Kucha. So in Kucha, earlier caves and later caves with the possibilities to circumambulate the main image. Now that the central pillar caves are definitely later, all central pillar caves will be shown in the book, which is right now being published. And I also wanted to tell you that Leipzig Kucha studies are being printed by Def publishers in Delhi. Def is doing really great job, and 2 books, this is number 3, which will appear probably this year or beginning of next year. We publish already 2 books, so just have a look on the homepage of Def publishers, or I can only encourage you to have a further look there. So the central pillar caves, maybe the beginning of them also in India. And important is something about, well, the most important is that we are still discussing about that. And this is how it is, how we understand it in Leipzig, but it is not the end of the discussion. So maybe the chronology is settled, but dating is still a question of of discussion. So we see in the first Indo-Iranian style somehow being same like Ajanta, end of second part of the still 5th century. Around middle of the 6th century, what is the second Indo-Iranian style? You see that this is still here the Buddha with black natural hair. Here the Buddha is having blue hair. By the way, in Ajanta 20, in the main chamber, the Buddha has blue hair, so that also can be Indian. Important for us for this lecture that before middle of the 7th century, we cannot observe Indian Chinese influences. It is only after conquest by Tang, China, that influences are started, began, and you can also see how completely different this painting is. All of a sudden, a Buddha without mandorla is possible, which is not a single time before and not after. And so we then still have later style, what we call Uyghur style, Chinese research calls it Uyghur style. For us is actually a continuation of the second Indo-Iranian style. Maybe just have a look on that. In second style, there's small figures because that's actually narrative representation. We have allusion to particular story, which is again also here in the Uyghur style. While in Chinese Buddhist style, these narratives were of no importance and disappear. Now, for you and me, just going from Indian background, actually it is impossible to date these paintings much earlier, which Chinese research tend to be. This robe of the Buddha or monks just gluing on the body, that's of course Gupta time. Same with mandorla around and the Buddha. This is how the Buddha is depicted in Kizil, starting already with first Indo-Iranian style. Actually, equivalents of Gandhara we cannot observe. So once again, we have this central pillar cave, the biggest number of representations in Kucha, in entire Kucha, are in this style and this shape of the cave. And good to know that we have programs there. Second, Leipzig Kucha Studies, which you can see by Dev, was my book about parinirvana space, which is usually in this backside. So the Buddha is dying, the Buddha being cremated, sharing of relics and scenes like that. In the book, and there is like introduction section about development of parinirvana, the pictures in India, and that showed me that Kucha is really not taking only from Gandhara, that there are so many influences like from Mathura or from Sarnath, so that's really conglomerate of different styles from entire subcontinent. We have Maitreya above the entrance door. So when somebody was going out of the cave, you could see the future Buddha there. On the main wall around the niche is a visit of Indra and his musicians, Panchashika. Must have been really impressive when you had meditating Buddha in the niche there. Bigger number of narratives are depicted in barrel vault and on the walls. This is really a lot. There are jatakas and sermon scenes on the barrel vault, very often different deities, yakshas, or deities playing music, a lot of sermon scenes, and still a row of jatakas still below. So 100 narratives in one interior, it's actually normal. Good to know that these caves are actually tiny. 20 square meters, and there is still this central pillar, which is not interior. So there is a space for a family, not really for a bigger group of pilgrims. The way of depicting, this is actually the most interesting about Kucha, and that's what they really did out of Indian tradition, what was really new and their own invention. They represented, first of all, different moments from the life of the Buddha that we don't have depicted in India, not a single time. Monk Kashyapa is presenting miracles in front of King Bimbisara. On the right side, depiction from barrel vault, reduced to the most important points. There is the Buddha, there is the king, there is Kashyapa who multiplied himself, so it is shown, he is shown with many heads and fire coming from his body, and Monk Kashyapa falling down to the feet of the Buddha. On the left side, there is a much more complicated variant, which is really difficult to read, and we are still having big problems with identification of many such narratives. But when it's once identified, you will see it everywhere. There is a monk with many hands, there is a monk falling down, and there is a king with whom the Buddha is speaking. New identifications are many. Robert Arlt and Satomi Hiyama, my great student, identified several of them. And there's the story about girl Rohika, who was killed by the cow and reborn as a princess of Sri Lanka. So we see the girl being killed by the cow. This particular is certain because we have Tokharian inscription here. Now, and this is really great about these paintings, we have the same on the upper right corner. There's the girl and the cow, which is here actually only for one reason, to show us who is the queen the Buddha is talking to. Fantastic way of depicting, and that's a challenge for a viewer and for the painter. They don't hesitate to show in one pictures two different rebirth. That's the same person in the previous life, which is depicted in one painting. So that goes farther. Really a lot what we can observe with in already complicated narrative representations in India. So the program is there. We have this 100 of depictions, sometimes big, sometimes small, sometimes complicated, sometimes easy to recognize, and there is a lot of special language which we also cannot observe in India, but which shows us the common knowledge of Sanskrit. What they do, they illustrate Sanskrit words. Go Shirsha Chandana certainly does not mean that the pieces of sandalwood had a shape of heads of cows. Probably the etymology is there was a special sort of sandalwood coming from the mountains, which was named Cowhead, Goshirsha. But they illustrated really like heads of the cow. Shiva's musician, Panchashika, is indeed showed with these shikas, 5 shikas on the head. We have entire group of demons called after demons from Ramayana, Kumbhakarna, but he really has pots instead of ears. Entire group, we can meet them really very, very often. And there are also some radals. I still don't know what it is. That's definitely a naga, beautiful Nagaraja with snakes behind his head. But one snake is not a snake, but has a head of elephant. I don't know what it is. There are two meanings of the word naga. Naga can also mean an elephant, so maybe it's just a pun. Or that's the name of this naga, maybe Gajamukha, elephant face, or something like that. It can be illustration of his name. But one thing seems to be really certain. The viewer could understand that. So the common knowledge of Sanskrit, maybe not of a language or particular words, was definitely there. Now, not only word, but just language of different persons there. That was my job. I had some of articles about depiction of the gesture or the Dusaka. The point is that I recognized them in different school. It was not difficult to recognize him because the fool of the court in India, how they were depicted, it is exactly like Natya Shastra describes them, which is really interesting, with this Kutilaka bent several times and with Kakapada Shirshamastaka, so Kakapada on the top of his head, which is sometimes like in the upper right really looks like crow's foot, but sometimes just pompons on the head. So we have them several times in different Buddhist and not only Buddhist representations. They were not for fun there. That was already in India a sort of really important message, because like Ajanta 17 lower left, this is from the story when Mr. and Mistress of this gentleman shown in the painting, they decided to be monk and nun. And this is something he really did not like. So he was just showing, not with me, and just going away with his sweets. So that was part of visual language, just pointing for the viewer, oh, what we see. And they're going to the monastery. Now, my students recognize the same person in the painting, and the point is that it is quite possible that it was not just a fool on the court, just coming together with queen or the king, but really a theater person. That also should not surprise us, because that was exactly there when oldest preserved fragments of manuscripts of dramatic literature have been discovered. Ludes writes about that. Shariputra Prakarana of Ashwagosha has been discovered there. We have fantastic research, among many others, Dr. Winter, about theater tradition in the Silk Road. Actually, it is very much possible that all those pictures, all those preaching scenes in Kucha, they were recitated. We have in manuscripts just names of how they should be sung, the names of matters. Well, depictions of India are there, and actually everywhere. Just again with this horse, you can see it, really everyone can see. So we have Brahmanica rishis meditating in the mountains. It is more than that. When the painter wanted to show, here we are in Himalaya, this is wild mountains, so he would show first of all meditating rishis. at least they really knew how, or they had imagery. There was, of course, no Brahmanical temples there, but imagery how rishis should look like with all these jatas and water flask was definitely there. Of course, we have critique that was not good. So, of course, they don't know Buddhist law. So here, Vajrapani is attacking, that's the picture of Shravasti miracle in Kizil. But there was also a lot of respect, probably because of that they generally knew that Brahmanica ascetics were able to meditate. They knew the techniques of meditation. What we also have, and I must say I was really very much surprised when I discovered such paintings, there is somebody meditating between Pancha Agni, the fifth being the sun, standing on one leg. You will know that better that I do from Indian art, Arjuna meditating in Himalaya, which is here the example from Nagarjuna Konda, that's from Shaiva temple found in the vicinity, again meditating. There are 4 fires below. So such understanding of meditation, which is actually criticized in Buddhist scriptures, was at least there. The question is, what did they know about ajivikas? How do I come that could be ajivikas? He's naked, and we have 2 certain examples of ajivikas. Certain because on the right side there's one from 110 in inscriptions, Ajivika Upaga, whom the Buddha met going to Sarnath to have the first sermon. Another one is also, so we know from the context of the story, this is Ajivika. So Ajivikas were blue. They had this ring in penis, whatever it means. So at least the knowledge, and perhaps that they were from southern India, very dark, what is given by this blue color, and they really strong, hardcore meditation. So at least that was apparently quite well known in Kucha. What is really very much surprising, that in at least 2 manuscripts, and perhaps also in one inscription on the wall in Sim, Brahmanica Shraddha, a ritual of death, is mentioned. So even that was known to bring down the Shraddha ritual for father and mother. I'm not aware about anything like that in other Buddhist population in India. I connected this ritual with a short entire group of paintings repeatedly shown in Kucha. It's my painting paper by me about crossing the ocean of samsara. So we have depictions like that somebody is swimming in the ocean or trying to climb a mountain, people are falling down. So we have really several representations like that, because there are jatakas above in nearly all cases. It looks like it could be just this people in or Antarabhava beings before being reincarnated. It's maybe, we don't know, but it looks like from entire program of the caves. In several instances, the people do not swim, but are sitting in boats and are shown like clad in Tokharian clothes. And there is also one really interesting representation. I hope you can see. So on the hand of this demon who's trying to stop the boat, there is a shore, so he's stopping the boat, and in his hand there is a coin. Really important, because maybe we have something like beliefs in Charon, which is originally from Greece, but was actually popular in entire Central Asia. Important for me to show you that that's not only Indian tradition, but entire mixture, and what Tocharian did out of it is really their own very own particular culture. But a lot of India. Wonderful Indra, with fantastic Vajra flying there to see the Buddha on his deathbed. Together with Indra, usually Brahma is shown. They belong together. By the way, we do not have in Kucha triads like the Buddha with two bodhisattvas. What we have is Buddha, Indra, and Brahma. That's typical for us. So Indra has the third eye, this characteristic crown, and Brahma is depicted like Brahmanica ascetic, wearing jewelry. Also that it is not like in Gandhara without jewelry, but it's like Ayole and later Gupta depictions of Brahma. What about other Hindu deities? This is depiction of from first Indo-Iranian style, so probably 5th century. We have a representation of story of Maitra Kanyaka. His father, Mitra, was given, was praying to get a son, and he's shown here on the right side, pouring butter into fire, and in front of him, I hope you can still see, there is a leg of a bull, and there is one leg, probably of Shiva. And please notice that this leg is wearing calf warmer. We will come to that. It is apparently of importance here. On the left side of the depictions, there are this fantastic Brahmanica ascetics who are given a prediction. There's a boy already born, so they say who he's going to be. Now, representations of Shiva together with his wife Parvati are very many, which is quite impressive how many they are. Here they are, and when we enlarge it, you will say it looks not really like in India, but there is a lot what one could expect. There is a crescent moon, there are two faces on the side, so he's shown with 3 faces, but there are also 2 animal faces above. Sometimes you will see on other examples trident, so Shiva, maybe this you can also see, and this is like so the skin like ascetics are wearing, but so ascetic is there, but once again, but also he is sort of military clad, and sometimes is carrying he's carrying weapons. The most popular way to show Hindu gods are with many hands and with sun and moon held high. I'm aware that's probably the earliest one in Mathura, the 4th century, but of course there are many after. So in 2 arms, sun and moon, sometimes in chariots, sometimes without. Quite popular, or at least we have several examples of gods like that. Really mighty depiction about mighty God who has sun and moon under control. So that's really important to remember that. And I'm absolutely sure in Kucha people did know how mighty gods they were. So we have such representations with many handed gods holding around objects high. What we see on the right side is quite particular representation, a couple of Shiva and Parvati sitting on the bull. In really fantastic paper, Cirolo Muzio showed that not only in Kucha he also takes under consideration and points to several depictions like that, but we have in entire Central Asia, from Kashmir, from Afghanistan, Tajikistan, there are representations like that. Important to remember that this is post-Gupta time. Of course, we have Shiva and Parvati in Mathura before, but this particular motif, the so-called Uma Maheshwara, when the couple is sitting above the bull and Shiva is shown with many hands, this is post-Gupta time. Please remember that it might be of importance after. From our area near Ghazni, Afghanistan, so eastern Afghanistan, it's really impressive, fantastic depiction of Uma Maheshwara. Also important to know that this picture, that this sculpture was excavated, it was placed above a Buddhist temple. So in the post-Gupta time, placed above a Buddhist temple. Now, going back to China, not only Shiva Uma Maheshwara, but we have also Vishnu. Here, Garuda is not really like we are used to know him, and Vishnu is shown with three heads. One is sort of like a crescent moon, so they are own additions, but that it is Vishnu, it is really absolutely clear in several examples. Please have a look at Garuda to the right of monk's head. Vishnu is shown with 6 arms, holding sun and moon high, and on the right side we have this previously well-known Uma Maheshwara group. It repeats and repeats and repeats. Actually, it's one of the most common representations. Nearly in every cave in Kucha, we have these 2 gods, not always good preserved, but when you know already what is supposed to be, and you see Garuda and sun hold high, you can really be sure what was depicted. One of the most beautiful, unfortunately lost today, it is only this aquarelle by Grunwedel preserved from cave 224. Now, of course, for us, it is Shiva and Vishnu, because the iconography is so clear. If they were really understood in such a way, if the names were used, we simply don't know. That's we are 1,000 kilometers from the next Hindu temple. Maybe they simply didn't know about it. I can say only that many armed, many-handed deities are never peaceful and are never friendly towards the Buddha and monks. We have depictions like that, which is part of Mara Vijaya, and deity with sun and moon hold high is attacking the Buddha, and we have really plenty of depictions like that. Demons with many arms are causing really a lot of troubles to the Buddha and his monks. So they are mighty because they have this sun and moon they hold high, but it seems that they were understood like demons. In many depictions, most of depictions, where you see legs of Shiva and Vishnu, or maybe deities using iconography of Shiva and Vishnu, they are shown with this calf warmers, which is characteristic of demon. On the right side is a yaksha. So yakshas, asuras are depicted with calf warmers wherever they was supposed to come from. And also that these mighty deities with sun and moon are presented among the demons. It's not only once here, that's something which really repeats. There are sometimes really danger demons shown on their side. I had a paper about it, starting maybe in this point when the meaning of this Shiva and Vishnu definitely turns to something different. I presume that we have the beginning of Asura iconography in so the name of the paper was Cosmological Matters. Maybe you are interested in that. It's all in academia. Cosmological Buddha in Kizil 17. There are many Buddhas on the chest of the main Buddha person, and we have this two, maybe still Shiva and Vishnu, maybe asuras, because on the same time on the body of these cosmological Buddhas, there are possibilities of rebirth depicted. So you can be reborn like asura as well. This is Kucha, but this Chinese style, when we have asuras or Shiva Vishnu. I hope you can recognize still here bull. So that's probably, well, in any case, wherever they are, the painter took care that they have different colors, if not blue like Vishnu before, and they called Sun and Moon high, and are standing on the side of Mount Sumeru. On one point in the development of that, Asura will jump and will be depicted in front of Sumeru. But this is not in Kucha yet. That will happen in Dunhuang. In Dunhuang, we have on the same place cosmological Buddha, Sumeru, but we have one Asura standing in front of that. Once again, we call him Asura, and that's definitely true, but what it is still perhaps something from iconography of Shiva and Vishnu, because he is standing on the tortoise. So perhaps still iconography in one way or another, or still understanding memory of Vishnu in there. But this is Asura. He is standing in world ocean. There is Sumeru behind him, and there is heaven on the top, the heaven of Indra. He's shown with many eyes, and many arms, of course, and upper arms are still holding sun and moon. Interestingly, that in China, over hundreds of years, when you show possibilities of being reborn among gods, animals, pretas, and so on, asuras are shown in such a way, one deity holding sun and moon high, that will repeat in later art in sort of really everywhere. Now, there's the most famous asura from Nara. Sun and moon disappeared, but we can be absolutely certain that they were still there. Their iconography appears, and that is for students to know that asuras with sun and moon, they probably know from their comics, really go far way back. What I could see only now in making this these drawings, I didn't notice that before, that in this particular scenes, when the Buddha is adorned by Shiva and Vishnu, he's not sitting on the throne in absolutely most of the cases. It seems to be lotus, but at the same time, this lotus is sort of not really round, but having particular form, and there is green water with lotuses below. Here again, it's really a strange shape depicted. All other scenes in the very same cave, the Buddha is in normal way shown, so seated on the throne. So the meaning was certainly there. It seems to me that already in these scenes, in preaching scenes on the walls, when Buddha was depicted between Shiva and Vishnu, he was understood like sitting on the world ocean above, or maybe that's sort of Sumeru. So iconography was really created already here. What was taken over to representations of cosmological Buddhas. So this is how I see that. There was iconography created in India much earlier than this Kashmiri depiction we see here, was taken over to Kucha, where Vishnu is still blue, mighty god, having control on sun and moon, but still with the same iconography and still being two of them. Then we have Dunhuang with only one asura, which tradition which is continuing till today. As we see, this main switch was between Kucha and Dunhuang. So the role of Kucha was this putting further Indian culture was really absolutely great. But we must ask question, why actually such representations of Shiva and Vishnu being subordinated to Buddha were so popular in Kucha. To that, I would like to point to this really fantastic book by Giovanni Verardi. It was published in India, so I think maybe still it's possible to purchase that, about hardships and downfall of Buddhism in India. Difficult book. First of all, because we have this prejudice. We still believe that India was this happy country where so many religions were coexisting peacefully over hundreds of years. And the book shows that was really not the case. Really impressive appendices by Frederica Barba in this book, where in such a sober way, it's just analysis of main pilgrimage places in Bodh Gaya and in Sarnath, where it shows Buddhist construction being destroyed by Brahmanika. After that, again, Buddhists are coming, being destroyed by Brahmanika. So it really tells us a lot about that time. And I stressed before that this Uma Maheshwara group is post-Gupta. It tells us about the time we are here looking in these paintings. Verardi calls this period a period which is not pleasant to contemplate. And he is actually really right. That's the time Gupta stopped to exist, the time of Toramana and Mihirakula, hostile policy against Buddhism, and so on and so on. again, a new book. If you don't know it, I really like to point to that. This Hunnic people in Central and South Asia, which are sources, sources in Sanskrit. It's always translations in different languages, and just from this time. So this hostile policy against Buddhism is really very, very well documented in very different sources. We actually don't know how far Kucha was under influence of Hunnic people, but what we know for sure that if in Chronicles of Kashmir, hundreds of years later, Mihirakula was still of such fearful person, of course that might have been known in Kucha, were really interesting in what is going on and what is coming from India. So representations like that can tell us a lot about situation of this religion in this really difficult time you don't want to contemplate about. Just another day last week we had conference of Seshak in Leipzig, where I was trying to show students and researchers of Tibetan languages, look in our direction. We have depictions of deities which really look like tantric deities, and apparently they are much earlier. All tantric fearsome deities from which you know. Of course, I'm not trying to say we have tantra in Kucha. We definitely not. That's quite early Buddhism, not even Mahayana Tantra, not at all, no texts are available. But the need to create really danger-looking dharmapalas was certainly there, and this is what is absolutely typical for Kucha, and that he's standing on the entrance to the main chamber and is really danger. This is my last slide. What I wanted to show you, influences of Indian culture in one way or another, hostile or fascination of Tocharian people of Indian culture. I'm really looking forward to your questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Professor Zin, for that fascinating lecture. The fact that you were able to demonstrate to the students and to us how you can read so many things through the changes in iconography and movement of not just people, but of ideas, and how they are transformed is a very important aspect. And I'm sure students would have understood a lot of aspects of these kind of changes, even if they don't know the intricacies of the iconographic programs at Kucha and at Dunhuang. So I would like to invite people to ask questions of Professor Zin. And Professor Zin, if you could stop presenting, then we'll be able to see the
I don't really know how I can do it.
You go to share screen.
And, okay.
There we are. Now we can see you in entirety. So that's a good thing. So questions, or if I can start. I don't know if you have, I can't see the chat box. I'm sure the students can. If I can start, I was very interested in this term that you used, Indo-Iranian style, the first Indo-Iranian style and the second Indo-Iranian style. Now, I was just wondering in terms of terminology as to why are you using that term, and how does that fit into the movement of people in that area, especially Tarim Basin and all that?
Maybe we should use it only in parentheses or something, but that's all terms. Terms which were used already by first German researchers, Grünwell, Lecoq, who were there inside, and also after that, first of all, by Waldschmidt, who created all that first. Not only dating is actually not a point, but influences. What he really tried to show by that, there are influences from India and from the West, in opposition to influences from Chinese side. Actually, it is Indian and Iranian. That all these clothes could see, it is like in Sogdiana, so that's from Iranian world, and the style of narrative representations or the Buddha and so on, they are from India. I'm absolutely aware that the term is not perfect. What is Indian style? Let's ask. Or what is Iranian style? Nothing like that exists. But just as opposition to Chinese, it makes sort of sense.
Yeah, so it has a genealogy in terms of academic. The other thing that I found very interesting was the Kashyap Brahmin kneeling in front of Buddha in the Bimbisar depictions. The way the person was kneeling is very much like the Dipankar depictions in
people are shown kneeling in front of the Buddha. That's quite typical. Brahma also asking him to preach, and so depictions like that really exist. Actually, this particular story about monk Kashyapa, it's an old story. Actually, the conversion of Kashyapa brothers, all text like Chatushparishat Sutra, we have and we have the representation starting with Sanchi. Many. Yeah, but the story continues. The story continues. What is not depicted in Sanchi, apparently because of difficulties how to depict it. In Sanchi, we don't only have Buddha depicted, but we don't have monks.
Yeah.
So as long as the image of the Buddha was not created, also monks have not been depicted. The story continues like that, and it's actually quite interesting from the policy of religion, because we have in several texts that the Buddha is actually very sober way is thinking, whom should I win for me? It was in the time when he only had 5 monks, or he was the 5th. No, he has 5. He was the 6th. And after that, he decides, there is this mighty king, Bimbisara, and his guru is Kashyapa. So when I win this Kashyapa, also the king will pay for my monastery. So that was really economical thinking. And this long process, because Kashyapa pretended he was also Arhat, so that there was really long time. Now, after he was already converted, Bimbisara was coming actually to meet him, but he was already monk, and he was old monk because he was old Brahmin, and to show him that now he is monk, not longer Brahmanical teacher of the king, he showed this superhuman ability he got during meditation. So he could fly, he could multiply his body, all this sort of wonderful show. And he fell down in front of the Buddha. This is in the texts, really. So in this moment, Bimbisara, that was answer on Bimbisara's thought. Whom should I first pay attention to? My old teacher Kashyapa, who is a monk now, on this young Buddha. who the hell is he? So that was really interesting point, and also interesting that this scene was depicted so many times in Kucha.
I think there are many questions, so I shall retire from the discussion. Ashu, if you can read out the questions or ask people to.
Yeah, ma'am. So, ma'am, we have a question from Sambuditya Ghosh. So he's asking, like, is there any influence of Nestorian Christianity or follower of money in the presentation, especially in panels where other figures are presented, like, I guess it's Indra, Shiva, or other Brahmanical deities?
That's a very good, very interesting question. We should have another lecture about it. Actually, these Manichaean and Christian influences are not really visible in Kucha, but they are quite very well visible farther to the east in Turfan, where there are really lots of purely Manichaean representations, and also Manichaean scriptures have been discovered. So not in this area of the Northern Silk Road, but farther to the east, there are very, very many, but we cannot see them in Kucha, or at least we did not found them. First of all, it is a little bit later, because that's Uyghur time. From it starts there in Kaghanats to the east of the Northern Silk Road in the 7th century, and only slowly moved further to the west. So in these paintings we are dealing with, there are no influences.
Thank you, ma'am. And there is one question from Facebook. So Mali Pandey wanted to ask, like, I guess it's a comment and then the question. I am studying and working on Silk Route culture and the kind of impact it has on the cultural scenario of really vast area around the world, down the centuries. My particular area is music, I guess, yeah. And I have been identifying different elements of art and culture on special focus on musical notes that actually can be found in quite a vast areas along the corridor. So I value this corridor very much, and have able to almost evolve a musical genre called migrating music. It is migrating music, and the almost originated with the coming of Greek Emperor Alexander. I trace the musical note since that period down to this period. I have been writing different articles in my blog and have been speaking on this. Now I am performing the migrating music with my band Indus. I have been working on a project reconstructing Silk Road. I need to know if Professor Zin can guide me in my search.
Great, congratulations to really important research. I'm really impressed. I'm afraid I don't know enough, and I hope it is only on me that I cannot answer the question, but maybe it's not me, but in general, we simply don't know enough. My answer is have a look on the homepage of Tokarev project on Vienna University, which I had this address in the presentation, but when you Google Tokarev manuscript Vienna, you have it at once. Professor Melanie Malzahn, who is leading this project, is planning further project working with all this music, not notes, writing down of the music, but also that. But first of all, shapes and names of musical instruments. And I must say, we still really don't know how many they are, where they are coming from, and so on and so on. We are absolutely at the beginning of the research, and you are really welcome to join us. I would really appreciate when you could just write me a message. Maybe I can put you in connection with a doctoral student of mine, Divyanshi Gupta, who is for the time being just collecting different depictions of instruments, trying to compare them with Indian instruments, like depicted, for example, in Ajanta. The matter is more difficult that you could explain in such short answer. Just I can tell you that what we first of all don't know, if representations of let's say Gandharvas playing different music, if they depict real objects, or if they depict depictions of the objects. So already that we don't know. And because there are so many, because really lots of preaching scenes have musicians in the upper parts, and they are playing different instruments, sometimes blowing instruments, sometimes different string instruments, and so on. I still don't really know if they perhaps not have meaning in connection with depicted narrative. When you read Natya Shastra, just in the very beginning, there are musicians are coming, and some of them are there to appease Rakshasas, and others for so that was meaning already in India. And because we are aware that many such small details sometimes carry message for the viewer, and they knew about it. It was visual language we only try to explain. So I really can imagine that such musical instrument could mean particular parameter, who knows what. So only that I simply cannot answer if they were shown only because of music, or there is something in connection with a particular text or sort of Buddhism or sort of whatever. But I would really appreciate, please contact us, and I would like to be in contact with, and congratulations to your project.
Yeah, ma'am, she have dropped her email ID, so I just have wrote it down in the chat box. So she wanted to, like, if it is possible, you can connect with her.
I will send her Professor Zin's email.
So I see the box with what should I do?
I'll send you the email ID of this person, Monika.
If this influence, is that? No,
No, the last one, Somali Panda or whatever. I will send you the email.
Okay. Email.
Yeah, she sent her own email. So I'll send her your email and we can connect. Are there any more questions?
No, ma'am, we don't have any question, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask one simple, ma'am, since we were talking about the Ramayana depiction and those paintings and all, so I just wanted to know, do we find any kind of, what kind of versions is that depicted on? So it's like we see a lot of versions coming in and around. So what version has been written over there? So is it whether it's in Java version, or it's an Indian version, or within Indian version, whether it's a Valmiki version or a Kampan's version? So that's one part. And the next question is, like, if you're talking about the Ramayana, then why not Mahabharata? Do we find any depiction of Mahabharata as well? Because since Vishnu is also playing a very important role in Mahabharata. So I just wanted to know. I'm just curious to know about it.
Me too. Me too. We do not have clear depictions of Ramayana in Kucha. Fragments of manuscripts have been found. Also, maybe for you, interesting information, just in a couple of weeks, our book about Samsara Chakra in Indian tradition will be published again by Dev in Delhi. And that's a comparison between the depiction of Samsara Chakra in Ajanta and one text which was discovered in the Kucha area, manuscripts. And in this particular manuscript, which is from the 5th century, it is not only description what you should depict inside the wheel of samsara, but also what should be shown outside. And there is a list of scholars. Great scholars are there, like Dhanvantari, mostly that they should be depicted. The meaning of that is probably that they have their knowledge, but they don't know how to go out of samsara, so that only the Buddha knows that. But interestingly, in this list of scientists, there is Valmika, author of Ramayana, which is like a scientist, and there is also Brahma, author of Natya Shastra. So that's the really interesting point. So what we have in Kucha, and I must say, maybe you could tell me, because I don't know any further, there is repeatedly shown picture. There is the Buddha preaching, there are different demons around, and in one upper corner is a city. In the city is a lady and the demon, and poor lady is really in stress, and archer is coming and is shooting an arrow direction of the city, and sometimes a demon is falling down. So actually it really looks like Sita. And what we also have is just like a frieze. Many scenes with a hero fighting against demons. Many scenes, wonderful representation. I can send you drawings. They are fantastic representation. My only point is there is not a single monkey. If you know a version without a monkey, please let me know.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And we have Pravash K. Chaudhary. He raised his hand. He want to ask question. So can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
This presentation, am I audible?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Jain, for such a fascinating lecture. I'm getting very curious to know, when we are comparing or we are looking at the influences of so-called quote-unquote Indian art in Central Asia. Isn't it like it gives me like option that are we supposed to talk only in as if it is a one-way process, or is it there something mutually we can look at, like what was happening in Central Asia, how definitely it would have been influencing the representations that we are getting in Gupta and post-Gupta century in Indian subcontinent also. Like looking at these art forms and their drawing their corollary as if only the influences from Indian sides we are getting in the Central Asian region on the Silk Route. So and how this this exchange was taking place after all, and the context of these exchanges is something that I think we need to definitely explore more.
Definitely.
Something
that's what I really ask you to do, and just know more about Kucha. it is really sad that all what we have is this religious aspect of their cultures. We have this caves, painted caves, many of them, more than 200, which is huge material, but this is actually all what we have. There are some secular manuscripts, but mostly also in connection with purchasing of something with monasteries. They were discovered there. Hardly more has been discovered, so we don't know how people were living, what they really had in their private houses or palaces. Yuan Xiang writes about the temple of Devata in the middle of the city. So who knows how he understood that without having knowledge about Indian culture. So that could have been something from local, but maybe not. So that part of Tokharian culture is absolutely unknown. Why they were so fascinated by Indian culture? Sometimes I really have a feeling that they were trying to be better Indian. They were ancient Indian. Remember, we are here in 6th, 7th century. That's time where India was already different. First of all, Mahayanistic in context of Buddhism, but stopping to be Buddhist at all. And they were really keeping on that. What reason that they had, we definitely don't know. We know, for example, that on the southern Silk Road, that there were migrations of monks really coming there. Something like that they were really Indian monks from Gandhara, from the subcontinent coming there. We don't have research about it. So the language, everyday language, was this Tokharian, which might have been similar, but still that was not Sanskrit. So more research is absolutely needed. That's why I'm so pleased to know that somebody is working with writing of notes or music, and really hope that after a while we will really know more. I'm afraid this is all I can tell you for the time being.
Yeah, thank you so much. One more thing that I need your opinion on. Like when we are talking of Brahmanical deities in the Gupta and post-Gupta centuries, and the way, the context in which you are putting those deities in Central Asia or on the Silk Route, like demonizing Brahmanical deities at the same time, what we are witnessing in India is the proliferation of Puranic pantheon, isn't it? And these deities were being celebrated. But what actually force you to draw that kind of interpretation of demonizing deities like Vishnu, or the representations that you see of Shiva at these sites?
I cannot see other possibility to explain them. They are sitting among the demons. They have all this and calf warmers, which is main characteristic of yakshas, of demons. So there is a really good reason to understand them like that. This is not only Shiva and Vishnu, but 4 kings of directions, which, to the best of my knowledge, are never ever depicted with fangs or spiky ears in India. They are nearly always depicted like that in Kucha. So they are sort of demons because they have all these yakshas, nagas, and so on coming with just 4 different sort of deities. But they turn, they are actually per definitionem, that they are dharmapalas. This is what the Buddha tells them to do. When he dies, dharmapalas, 4 kings should take care of dharma. What we see in Tibet, there are really fearsome deities, very often shown with all these weapons, and this is how we have them still earlier than in Tibet, in Kucha. They are demonized. They are demonized. That's I don't know if we can put it in question.
Okay. Thank you so much. If the chair will permit me, I have one more question in mind. I can ask that. May I?
I think so. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
See, one thing that I am interested in knowing about the representation of Ajivika at Kucha, and when we are coming across in the context of Ajivika, like a figurine wherein there is a representation of a figure with pierced penis and so on and so forth. Like in that way, how you can contextualize the nature of Ajivika sect and their presence in Central Asia?
I absolutely cannot say if Kuchean believers or painters had ideas about religion of Ajivikas, but they definitely had sort of vision that there are such strong aesthetics. As I said in Kizil 110, there is an inscription, Ajivika Upaga, which is the moment, and this is the scene depicted. The Buddha is enlightened and goes to Sarnath to have his first sermon, and he meets Ajivika. That was one of the pictures I showed you. So this is absolutely certain. Another painting of this Ajivika was also quite easily to recognize. When the Buddha died, Mahakashyapa was not there. He was in Rajagriha, and he met Ajivika coming with heavenly flower who informed him about the death of the Buddha. So which is depicted several times in Gandhara, which just belongs to iconography of Parinirvana cycles. So this depiction from Kizil 198 is also absolutely certain. We know who the person is. He looks strange. Those two are certain. Actually, I think I could recognize Ajivikas also in other scenes where they are naked, blue, so the skin is blue, and they have something really funny on the top of their heads. But this is uncertain. That's we cannot say for sure. But all these representations, they are dark blue.
Okay.
Krishna or Vishnu is dark blue. That could have been in the area that there are Indian people are sometimes darker. Some of them are darker, so probably from the south. I can imagine that the religion was already in this time, in, let's say 7th century, connected with southern India rather. So they had sort of imagery, and actually that's the most fascinating that they created this iconography. That's really fantastic. Iconography is for that the painter is showing something and hoping that the viewer understands that. So iconography is repeating. How far there is a truth in there, I simply don't know, and nobody can, I am afraid.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And we do have questions, but since the time is not permitting us, so I just wanted to wind up here and would like to thank Professor Monika Zinn for having this wonderful lecture. Earlier, we really enjoyed it, and I would like to thank everyone for attending and joining us. So thanks, and we will please connect with us through Facebook and WhatsApp. The website and all for the more lectures coming in near future. So thanks for the wonderful lecture. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monika.
Thank you, Sina. Thanks
Thank
once
you.
again for invitation.
Oh, thank you for coming. It's fantastic. Thank you, Asha. So,
Marion was there, I see. Marion, are you here?
I can't see Marion. Maybe she was here.